Anne Kerr. Welcome or welcome back to my art studio. When you start a watercolour painting, have you ever sat there and you've got all your paints mixed up, you've got all your brushes ready, and you look at this piece of white paper and you start to panic? And you can feel that panic rising and you think, oh, I've got to get this watercolour wash done and I've only got 2 minutes to do it in before it starts to dry. Well, in this video, I'm going to show you a way of doing your watercolour washes where you can have all the time you want, you don't have to rush, and there's no feeling of panic. So, are you ready? Can't control the watercolour washes and I've got to do my wash and it's got to be done in the first couple of minutes or it starts to dry. No, let me show you something. I'm going to make an area of my paper nice and wet. And by the way, this will only work if you use good quality watercolour paper. And by good quality, I mean 100% cotton. Now, I've tried this on just about every kind of watercolour paper there is on the market. It doesn't work well on wood pulp paper. It doesn't work well on cellulose paper. But on cotton paper, it's a dream. So I'm going to pick up my wash and I'm going to put it on like this. Now, sometimes when you do this and you've been told that, oh, you've got to get your wash finished in a couple of minutes or it starts to dry. No. If you keep that paper wet, you can play around with that wash just as much as you want to. I could come in with my tissue and I could remove some paint because I want to make a nice cloudy sky. And then I might think, well, that probably isn't exactly what I wanted because my land underneath is going to be a bit complicated, so I don't want a complicated sky. Okay, then come back in and paint over it. Now it's beginning to dry a little bit, so what I do is I take my watercolour spray and I spray the air above it and also very gently onto the paint itself. Now if I want the top of my sky to be a bit darker, I just come in and put in some more paint. Then I can take a tissue and I can squeeze the paint out of my brush, and if I wanted to, I could remove some paint just by wriggling my brush around and taking out paint like that. And as long as I keep this area wet, I can play around with this for just as long as the paper will allow me to. Now, poor quality paper, look, I'm going to do it again. Poor quality paper, when you do this a few times, the top of the paper begins to peel off because it's cheap, nasty paper and it will not let you work like this. This is 100% cotton. And look what control I've actually got over this. Look at all the things I can do. There's no rushing, there's no panic. I think, yeah, that's okay. Maybe I'd like to add a little bit of red to the top there, just to make it a little bit different. Okay, then come in and do it. Put your wash back in again. Come down with your blue. Blend them together. I mean, look at that beautiful, beautiful transparency. And once again, I can come in with a cloth, with a tissue. I can take things out. Or if I didn't like what I've done, look what else I can do. I can take a piece of rag and I can wipe the whole thing off. I tell you, you could not do this on cheap paper. You would be in a dreadful mess. Look at that. Then I can just wet my paper again and start over. So all this nonsense about you've got to get your wash done in 2 minutes, otherwise it starts to dry. No. If you use good quality paper, you've got total control over what you're doing. Look, here we go again. And I could go on doing this and adding paint and taking paint out for just as long as my paper will allow me to. There's a bit of rag there. Let's come back in with the tissue again. It's such fun, this really is. Come back in with my red. Cover up my cloud because I don't like it. And go down again and come back and blend my colours. Now there is no way you could do that on cheap paper. No way. You would be in a dreadful mess. You probably have a hole in your paper by now. Let's move the paper over a little bit. Now my paper is beginning to buckle, so what I do is I release my clips, I flatten out my paper, and I put my clips back on again. Saves all that stretching of paper. I never do it. Okay, let's do something a little bit different. Let's have some different colours and adding different colours together. Let's make another area of the paper wet. So a great big wash brush, plenty of water all over your paper. Lovely and wet. I've already got my washes mixed up, by the way. Here they are. Okay, already got my washes mixed up. Always have your paint mixed up before you start. Otherwise, by the time you've mixed your paint up, this is dried. So once again, I can come in with my colours and I can paint whatever I want. You might have seen me doing this in another video that I've done. Same sort of thing. I often repeat this because it's such an important lesson. Now there's that beautiful, beautiful transparent yellow. And I could then think, I'll add a bit of orange to that. Maybe I'm doing a lovely sunset. Now, as long as my paper, excuse me, as long as my paper stays wet, and I keep it wet by just giving it the odd little spritz with my water bottle, I can change things if I want to. I can take a clean piece of tissue. I think, that orange is probably a little bit dark, so let's just remove it. How easy is that? And then I wash out my brush, and a very important thing, when you wash out your brush, do not put it straight into the paint that you've mixed up, because your brush is full of water. And you're going to be adding more water into those lovely mixes you've just made, making them too dilute. So dab your brush onto a towel or squeeze it out with your fingers and take out the water. Now I can come back in with, maybe I'll put, wow, look at that. I'll add some red in there. Wash out my brush, dab it on a towel to take out the water, and come back in and maybe put some yellow back in. And I could go on doing this, putting in and taking out, as long as I want to, provided I keep that paper wet. And that's the secret. So no more panicking about having to get your washes done in 2 minutes. It's a load of nonsense. Oh, I just adore these colours. In my paint box, I only have transparent watercolours. I don't like opaque colours. And when you're buying your watercolours, you've only got to look on the tube and it'll tell you whether it's transparent or opaque. Now look at that. Now, provided this is wet, I don't really want to take that out, it's lovely, but I'm going to take it out so I can show you. Back we go again with our colours. Take the water out of my brush and back I come with my colours. So this way of painting, you've got no rush, no panic, and you can just take as long as you like. But I must emphasise the fact that this will only work on good quality watercolour paper. And people say, well, that's all very well, but if you want this to dry down to just one layer of paint so it's beautifully transparent, what if you wanted to put some dark paint in? Do you have to let it dry and then come back and put your dark over the top? Well, the answer to that is no. You can put, when this is half dry, which is the danger time, by the way, because if you start playing around with it when it's half dry, you'll start getting runbacks, unless you come in with paint that contains more pigment than your original wash. So I'm going to come in with really thick paint. Can you see how these are sort of running? But this one is quite thick. So although this is now half dry, I can come in with this. And it's going to be absolutely fine. Because this layer contains more pigment than the layers underneath. If I had come in with a layer of very watery paint, watch what happens. If I come in with a layer of watery paint, it will begin to run around and you'll get runbacks because you're putting paint in that has less pigment than the layers underneath. But provided it has more pigment, look at that, I love that. Providing it has more pigment, you can quite happily come in and put that in even when it's half dry. But if you come in with a watery mix, look at the mess you make. Now this is completely different to maybe you have an area of wet paper and you want to just drop colours in and let them move around and do what they do. This is where you do not have the control over the paint and you just want it to do its own thing. You want it to run around, move around and form a beautiful blurry sort of out of focus, maybe a background or maybe something like that. You don't have the control over that, but you're quite happy to let it do what it does. But with the method here where you make your paper wet and just keep it wet while you're painting, you have total control over what you're doing. Just before I turn the camera away from the desk, I'd like to show you this magazine, Leisure Painter. Now some of you may have come across it already. It's printed in the UK, but you can get it all over the world. I live in Spain, and this is posted out to me every month. It's a monthly magazine, and it's all about every kind of painting and drawing you can imagine. Watercolours, acrylics, oils, inks, whatever you want to do. It's a lovely magazine. The reason I know it's lovely is that I write for it. I write articles for it several times a year. In fact, that's my painting on the front cover there. And the article that I've done in this one, this month, is all about a beginner's guide to using pastel pencils. So it's a series of 4 articles that I've done on using pastel pencils. And in this magazine you'll find things like step-by-step instructions on how to show you exactly how to do something. What I've done here is there's a reference photograph of an apple, and then I've given people the step-by-step instructions on how to get to the final painting. And all through the magazine you'll find things that are step-by-step for you to follow in every kind of painting and drawing that you can imagine. Here we are again, look, step-by-step pastels this time. Absolutely super little magazine. Now this is a monthly magazine. You can take out a prescription for it, or you can buy it on the high street. So there you go. I thought I'd just introduce you to that little magazine. It really is worth its money. So, no more rushing and panicking to get those watercolour washes done. You can take as long as you like, provided you use good quality paper and you keep that wash wet. Use fairly concentrated paints. You don't want to use watery paints that just run all over the place. You'll have no control over those. But good concentrated paints about the consistency of full cream milk. And then you will have total control over what you're doing. Remember to pop down to the high street and have a look at Leisure Painter magazine. And I think you will be surprised at the wonderful articles in there on every kind of painting and drawing that you could possibly imagine. If you haven't done so already, then please click that subscribe button. If you've enjoyed the video, then click the little like button. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. And remember, there's an artist in everyone. Bye for now.